the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Here we go. Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. Folks, as you know, we've got Black History Month. We've got about another 2 shows and whatever. But the whole idea is that we've been highlighting, if you will, issues here in the Portland metropolitan community in Northeast Portland, and there's been a great deal of history that we've had here within our town, and traditionally it's been called from a historical standpoint the Black community. But in all due respect, at one point in time there was a district here. It was identified as where there were more blacks living in that district than anywhere in the state of Oregon. It's not here anymore, but it's there. But during that particular time, there was a buildup of a number of issues within the community that were of major concern with the people that were living there. And I think during that particular time, we had someone that represented the area for quite some time, a lady by the name of Margaret Carter. She was there for a number of years and whatever. But there were many other activities. But one of the major things that happened in the community that is of a major concern, the word gentrification came in. And the whole idea was that the transitioning, that was one of the major issues, the transition. Emmanuel Hospital was huge during that particular time, and they were building and developing in that particular area for quite some time. And there was always this business of the transitioning, if you will, of trying to maintain as many people as they could have within the community. And in all due respect, I tend to look at the planners, but unfortunately, when you look at the definition of the planners, that was a group of folks that did the so-called landscape of what's to be expected. But anyway, saying all of that is that we're continually looking at that because it still seems to be an issue. And so joining me today is someone that's been in the community for a number of years, and who's had, in fact, who's been pretty well. Been sort of a vocal person from the standpoint of dealing with that issue, of bringing it up to the public at large and those individuals who are responsible. And so with me today is a lady by the name of Bird. She's been around for a number. How many years you been here, Bird?
I don't know. How are you doing, Bruce?
Boy, I tell you, it's going to be a good interview too. I think.
How are you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing just fantastic.
You finally got me on this show.
This is great. I mean, trust me, this is history. Just having her on here, trust me. But trust me, she's got quite a bit of background. She's very, very involved in the community. She knows the history of this community, and so I think we're going to have quite an interview. What we're going to do is that we're going to give her the opportunity to just share with you from a historical standpoint, kind of like from a standpoint, when did she get involved in this particular issue?
You didn't identify the issue, Bruce.
The issue? Well, that's what you're going to do.
The Emmanuel Hospital.
The Emmanuel Hospital. I said Emmanuel. Yeah. Remember, I said the Emmanuel was quite a development.
Okay, so let's get going.
Remember Freddie Petit? You remember those folks?
No.
Herman Plummer and Associates. You remember Plummer and Associates?
So I'm here to talk about the Emmanuel Hospital expansion atrocity.
Okay.
The history and the relevance now.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
All right, let's talk about it.
What do you want to know?
Well, I want to know the history of it. What's going on with the property? You said there was a piece of property there, right there on the corner, right across from the Urban League, right?
Right, the corner of North Williams and Russell.
Williams and Russell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what's the definition of that particular property?
Well, on August 1st, 2017, there was a press conference with Mayor Wheeler. There was Kimberly Branham was there, the head of Profit Portland, and the Dr. Brown, and they made the announcement that Emmanuel was, quote unquote, returning the land to the black community.
Okay.
So that's what happened August 1st, 2017. But to give some historical context for what they meant about returning the land, when Emmanuel Hospital began its expansion back in the 60s, it was a coordinated effort, and the Portland Housing Authority was involved, but you don't hear that name mentioned in this sort of effort to correct the past. Somehow the Home Forward, what it's currently named, is being left out of this conversation, and I find that very interesting. Anyway, Bruce, so when Emmanuel Hospital and PDC conspired,
Portland Development Commission, right?
privately destroying communities.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that.
When they conspired to get rid of Portland's thriving black community,
Okay.
they did so in what one researcher called the most egregious abuse of eminent domain. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. Emmanuel Hospital acquired properties, PDC acquired properties. They just went through, and as some people, members of EDPA2 have said, they recall literally looking out their back window one day and seeing their friend's house, and then the next day there was just dirt and rubble. And imagine that fear. Imagine living in a community for years and you start looking out your window and all of your neighbors' homes are demolished and bulldozed, and you're just sitting there waiting. Am I next? When is this going to happen to me? It was an atrocity. It was a coordinated effort that involved local media. The NBC affiliate here in Portland, KGW, actually produced a film called Albina, Portland's Ghetto of the Mind. The city of Portland actually created a pamphlet, and they created a ogre-like character, and they nicknamed this character Creepy Blight. It was a brochure, and it was also a radio spot. Creepy Blight was used to stoke the fears in white residents that if black people continue to populate in central Albina, we're going to have a ghetto right here in Portland. The Portland PDC actually published a brochure telling people how to move. It was a coordinated effort. It wasn't, for some reason, this story is being kept very small. And what I realized going to a lot of the community meetings about the property on North Williams and Russell, people don't know the history. It's very important in this instant to know the history, and I'll tell you why. The original Emmanuel Displaced Persons Association was a group of black folks who got together when this started happening in the 60s and 70s to confront what was going on in their community. They filed a complaint with HUD. Finding merit in the complaint, HUD halted the Emmanuel Hospital expansion and said, you all, government agency, government officials, you all need to go make it right with these people in order for this project to proceed. What came out of that was an agreement between the city of Portland, Portland Housing Authority, PDC, and Emmanuel Hospital. For every home they demolished, they were supposed to replace it. And taking from the language of the agreement, it says within close proximity of the project area. So every home they demolished, they were supposed to replace. They never fulfilled this agreement. Now, Bruce, we have a lecture coming up March 31st at 7 o'clock at the Unitarian Church downtown.
Okay.
So I'm not going to give away too many details, but I'll tell you this. People like to bring up that agreement in sort of a flippant manner and say, oh, it was a moral thing. Well, our research uncovered that there's a lot more meat to that agreement, and we'll reveal why at the lecture on March 31st. So anyway, they never fulfilled that agreement. And so now Emmanuel Hospital wants to develop that property on North Williams and Russell. They know it's a point of contention because for close to 50 years, they intentionally and willingly have left that property undeveloped. People, different organizations, different individuals have tried for close to 50 years to get them to honor this agreement. In 2012, they had a reconciliation breakfast. That's the closest they've come to doing anything corrective. So the way EDPA2 views this so-called returning of the land, it's a way to adhere to that agreement without totally doing so. And that's the danger. If the black community settles for this, you're getting shorthanded. There were more than 55 acres that were stolen, Bruce. That property on North Williams and Russell is 1.7 acres. Emmanuel will develop on a portion of that property. So for 55 acres, they're going to return less than 1 acre. And we're supposed to go, oh, this is great. And let me say something else, too. August 1st, 2017, when they had the press conference, It was stated that affordable housing and an African American community center will go on that property. And since I haven't heard anything different, I'll pretend like I haven't, okay?
Okay.
We're going to go with what they said because
Okay.
that's what they said officially as a part of the press conference. Bruce, affordable housing, we all need affordable housing. By no way am I knocking down affordable housing. Everybody, I don't care how much money you make, everybody needs affordable housing. In this instant, affordable housing will benefit Emmanuel Hospital far greater than it will ever benefit Portland's Black community. Emmanuel Hospital employees cannot afford to live in the area where they work. There are federal breaks given to medical facilities who build or who have affordable housing buildings in close proximity to the medical facility.
Okay.
I believe it was a 2015 tax.
Yeah, they were talking about it.
Yeah, where it
remember that.
states that, the charitable contribution, affordable housing for their tax-free status, it'll benefit. You know, Dr. Yamada Taylor has a book out called Race for Profit. In that book, it just came out, I think it came out in 2019. It's a new book. But in her book, she coins this phrase, predatory inclusion. We all know what predatory loans are, right? In this instance, dealing with government, predatory inclusion, and Emmanuel Hospital, this project is a perfect example of that, where you come in, you get rid of a thriving, upcoming Black community, well established. You get rid of it, you create a condition to where now we need you all to help repair this. And in the repair, it's going to benefit you far greater than it's going to benefit the folks who were damaged. Predatory inclusion. Predatory inclusion, okay? So those of us who are descendants of the displacement, my grandmother lived at 253 North Fargo, and contrary to popular belief, people were not compensated. See, people think, oh, you know, I've heard somebody from the Portland Housing Bureau say, well, what do you guys want? Everybody was paid. Everybody got $15,000. No, they didn't. The Uniform Relocation Act didn't come into play until 1970. That entire decade, they were taking people's properties without folks knowing it. If that were true, there wouldn't be a need for EDPA to even come into existence if everything was handled. So it wasn't. And the question is, why is that story being told? What is it that people, what are they hiding? What is it you don't want people to know? I think I have the answer.
Okay.
It'll be revealed March 31st.
March 31st. Now, I'll say this. I'll say this. I'm not from here, but when I got here, I would naturally, you pick up some of the history aspect of it.
Sure.
But the thing that, what I'm reminded of when you shared with me, what you just shared with me, I know of two people that I knew that I talked with, and was Freddie Petit. Remember her?
No.
You remember Herman Plummer?
Yes.
Plummer Realty? They were key people as far as real estate, because Herman was a realtor during that particular time. I knew of Herman's name, and I knew about Freddie's involvement in the piece during that particular time. I also knew another person by the name of Margaret Carter. And I also remembered that at one point in time they were very much involved with Emmanuel Hospital. You know, they were either the board or there were two boards. I'm just kind of like throwing some things out on the table. Because this issue, as you talked about, this issue has been coming back to the table and just periodically every so often. But in all due respect, that you know, I can still remember when I was at the Portland Observer newspaper, and we brought up the whole issue about, you know, we basically gave it an address, which was District 18. Remember, that was the address aspect of it. And the whole idea was to respond to some of the major concerns that you have. And every time, for some strange reason, there was an involvement of getting folks together. For some strange reason, it just sort of, no one paid attention. It just went away after a certain period of time. And it's always been the same, even since the Vanport days. You know, when people would basically, you know, and I was doing a number of pieces on that. Even the idea of the levee. I mean, I can still remember some of the old folks. I had a couple of the old folks here on the show where they basically said they'd alleged that it was just purposely blown up.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah,
Ron Webb definitely
I've
stopped
got
that.
those interviews, and in fact, I plan to play those interviews.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking about what you were saying about getting this thing back to the table. I would agree with you that this March 31st is a very important date. I would hope you know, in all due respect, anything we can maybe get these folks here at this facility.
Well, Bruce, let me say
do
this:
something for you to
when
help
we
you out.
posted the announcement online in January,
Okay.
within a matter of days, all the tickets were gone. We made provision and provided an additional 100 chairs. All of those tickets are now gone. People are still contacting us wanting tickets. I was actually on a panel last night, and people expressed disappointment that the lecture is sold out. Well, actually, anyone who wants to attend the lecture, despite what it says on Eventbrite, they should show up, because we now have an additional room that seats a lot more people, and that way folks can come. There's a high interest in this. I mean, I have to tell you the truth. I've been overwhelmed, surprisingly so, by the response and the continual requests for tickets. People really are supporting EDPA 2, Emmanuel Displaced Persons Association 2, and let me backtrack because we didn't talk about that. So Emmanuel Displaced Persons Association 2 is the official organized body representing survivors and descendants of the Emmanuel Hospital forced removal.
And who organized that?
There was a number of us, and actually we've been together for years.
For years.
For years. We've actually met with Mayor Wheeler for more than 3 years on this issue. We've met with Mayor Wheeler for more than 3 years on this issue. We provided him with an incredible plan for that property, but I'm not going to go into that right now. Before he assembled this group, where he signed an MOU saying that he will only work with these people concerning that property on North Williams and North Russell, it's very disrespectful, because there are families, some of which are listed in the Emmanuel Hospital atrium. There are families. And what in effect is being done is people we may or may not know, because Mayor Wheeler signed an MOU and pretty much shut the rest of the black community out, which happens all the time in the city. He signed an MOU with this group. They don't know a damn thing about my family history or legacy. They don't know about EDPA 2's members. So we are more than qualified to tell our story, and that's why we've come together to insert ourselves in the process.
For 1 acre?
1.7. No, wait a minute, Bruce.
And you're going to
Keep
accommodate
in
the
mind.
whole...
Wait a second, Bruce. Let's say this right. Emmanuel Hospital will develop on a portion of that land, so it's less than an acre. I'll tell you this: if you go to our Facebook page, it's EDPA2 on Facebook. We put a post. You know, Prosper Portland at one of their recent meetings had a placard. Now, Bruce, there's only a little over 74,000 square feet in 1.7 acres. Because 1 acre is, what is it, 46,000 some odd square feet?
You got a realtor out there. How many?
Yeah, it is. It's somewhere around there. It doesn't have to be accurate. So let me tell you this, Bruce. It's 1.7 acres. That's a little over 74,000 square feet.
Right.
Prosper Portland's placard says they're giving back 220,000 square feet. How are you going to do that? And there's only 74,000 square feet in it in 1.7 acres. See the games. But did they think no one would call them on that or catch it? We put it on our Facebook page. Prosper Portland needs to tell people exactly what the square footage is, because it's not 220,000. That's what, five acres?
So where are we going with this? I mean, are you suggesting that this thing has gone back for a number of years?
And it keeps coming up. But here's the beautiful thing.
Can't accommodate the entire community with 1 acre.
But see, that's where this game is being played. Okay, this is not about. And let me be careful how I say this, because this is a black issue. It is a race issue.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
When Ira Keller says the high concentration of Negroes in Central Alabama, that right there made it a race issue. Okay. So let's be clear about that. But what I'm saying is this: under the current context, this is not the whole of Black Portland's issue.
Right.
There are families whose homes were taken.
Right.
Those families have names and they're identifiable. Some of their names are on the atrium, as I've already stated. They're listed in the atrium of Emmanuel Hospital. Because they were so nasty and egregious in what they did, they didn't have the dignity to keep a list of all of the homes that they stole from folks. So EDPA 2, as we're doing our work, talking to people, organizing, getting our membership, we indeed have members, and we've met people in the community who say, oh yeah, my mom's house or my grandparents' house was at such and such. We try to find it, can't find the record on it. That doesn't mean that they weren't there and that their home wasn't demolished. It means prior to 1969, PDC didn't keep property identification files. So if your home was demolished before then, they don't have a record of it.
But boy,
And prior to 1970, there was no relocation file. So if your home was demolished in 65, there's no record. But we have, I am an librarian and an archivist, okay? So there are other methods to establish folks. So.
But I can still remember when I came here from the Marine Corps, and let's see, 69 and 70. That's when I was here, and they were discussing this issue at that point in time. And the reason why I brought up the Herman Plummer piece and Freddie Petit, they were listing all these. That issue was on the table then, and people were moving. They were moving them out, and there were promises made, and this, that, and the other. But for some strange reason, it just sort of passed on. And then all of a sudden, here we are today talking to you, and I'm thinking about what you're doing. I think it's a very important piece. And we got March 31st, and I'd be anxious, and hopefully the folks will attend. But beyond that, I'd like to say, after you've done that piece, we got to come back. What about the legal aspect of it? You have an attorney? Do you have attorneys all laid out? Do you have a rendering for that kind of stuff? And why? Some of the questions that comes to my mind: why just 1.1 acre aspect of it? I think about Wheeler, but I think about a whole bunch of folks. I think about during the Goldsmith days. I mean, if that was a heavyweight during that particular time, Freddie Petit was well known, and Herman was well known. But I also know that there were black folks that were working for Neil and working for this and working for that, and this, that, and the other. So,
But Bruce, let me bring up another issue relative to this property as well. So. We know the damage that the Interstate Corridor urban renewal area has done specifically to the Black community.
Right.
Urban renewal in general.
Right.
The proposal is to place that property into an already overused, gerrymandered interstate urban renewal area. That one block, to place it in because what folks are saying is that's the only way they'll have money to develop the land, which we know is not true.
That's ridiculous.
That absolutely is not true. And why would, my goodness, why would the Black community trust that process again? You have PPS Blanchard Building, you have Memorial Coliseum, you have Lloyd Center, you have Emmanuel, you have Mississippi, you have Alabama, you have Alberta, you have New Columbia. Do I need to go on how systematically Black folks have been forcefully removed from places in Portland, and now in one of the poorest areas of Portland? But we're going to trust this process one more time. And so people have a problem with me questioning that?
No, you got other folks involved now. In all due respect, we don't have a Black community anymore.
Yes, we do. We do.
I just had a show with some folks. So I asked about
I know
about that piece
I know
of real
everybody.
estate.
Oh,
But that's a tough job. You know what I'm saying? That's why I've got you on. This is Black History Month, and it shouldn't be forgotten. Let's put it that way. And I really appreciate the fact that you are taking the lead on this piece, and hopefully more people can be more involved. Get involved.
Oh, the support is pouring in, quite honestly.
But it's going to take some legal implications, maybe class action suit or something like that. And we're fortunate today. We've got, in all due respect, we've got the entire. We've got 5 seats right now.
Yeah.
And we've got all new people on city council, and maybe possibly look at the new mayorship aspect of it, And so the timing is perfect, if you
You
will.
think so?
Oh, we got things are going to change.
No, the mayor position. What did you say about that?
Was that? Oh no, that's going to change.
You think so?
Oh yes,
Huh,
it's
interesting.
going to change. And don't get me wrong. I think the same person who's sitting in the mayor's seat, he's running also again.
I know.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
it's going to be a new deal, and the people who are running, trust me, there's going to be a number of people running for those seats.
Yeah.
And I happen to know that there's some folks. In fact, I'm going to be interviewing one of the guests today who's going to be running. Sam he's been around. He knows some of the history, and he's very sensitive about the whole issue of housing and things of that nature. And we got Fred Stewart in the area. We did a show yesterday, this past Sunday, about that piece. So what you're talking about is in all due respect, is something that we'd be very supportive of making sure we'll be part of the team. Let's put it
But
that
Bruce,
way.
let me say this before I go, because I got to get downtown. Let me
Yes.
say this. You know, Portland is really in a very sweet spot.
Yeah, it is.
Portland, instead of boasting a national reputation for reversing gentrification, which
It's not.
it hasn't.
It's not.
But Bruce, listen, people think of gentrification as a movement of bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Gentrification is about the movement of money.
Mm-hmm.
If you aren't reversing economic conditions, you are not reversing gentrification. Here's the deal with this piece in The Descendants.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Portland is in a beautiful spot and can actually live up to its national reputation and actually reverse gentrification by doing what is right, by doing what
I
you
agree.
said you were going to do, by giving the descendant families, because you intentionally waited 50 years thinking everybody died off with Miss Glover and they were wrong. You intentionally waited. You actually have the opportunity to do something real for these families, like you signed that agreement all those years ago. Why not do it? Because we're sick of the reports coming out. Oh, Portland's racist past, historical damage. Well, do something about it.
Well, in all due respect, I can see that this being a major factor as far as the platform for running for office. Like you said, we're in a unique position. This should be part of the platform for anybody and everybody that's running, if you will, to put this on the table.
We've
to see whether
emailed, we've been in contact with some folks,
Good.
but we emailed everybody.
Okay.
We emailed everybody.
Well, let's do this again from the standpoint of saying we've got EDP A2, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you've got the March lecture on 31st. Identify it. Where's this going to be again now?
It's at the Unitarian Church downtown.
Unitarian. Okay.
The big church downtown. I believe
Okay.
it's on 12. I can't remember.
Okay. Is there a possibility of videoing that, and then maybe we can play that on the
We
show?
have our own
You got your own?
videographers, but no one who attends the lecture will be allowed to take any photos, nor will they be
Well, why is
allowed to
that?
video.
Don't you want to get the people out there?
No,
Why is that?
because research is expensive. There's a difference between Google and research. Research is expensive.
So who's picking up the tab? Are you going to pass the hat? Who's picking up the tab?
People can donate.
No,
As
no.
we'll
Well,
have
let's
things
share,
there for
okay.
people to buy.
Okay, but I'm just saying, still, you're going to have to get it on the table because, like I said, we're fortunate.
Bruce,
We got all
the
these
lecture
people running for
will
office.
be videotaped
Can you bring it to
for
the table?
our ownership.
But it's the people that's got to make that decision.
People will see it.
Okay, well, like I said, I'll be more than glad to. We'll be more than glad to show it. I'll be more than glad to show it.
I
Trust me.
know. We've gotten quite a few offers for people, and the lecture hasn't even happened yet, saying they want a copy of it.
Because these developers that are coming in here today, they're going to definitely resent that piece, and I don't see, in all due respect, I
Well,
don't see
these
the present
developers
there.
are making pretty good money.
Yes, but you made mention about one guy who's handling
The
all that to
developers are all
permits.
right. It's the descendants I'm worried about.
Right.
The descendants, we want direct compensation. It's real clear what we want. And we are the legal heirs to anything that they return.
But a half an acre, that just pretty well tells me
That's
things
a
are gone.
joke.
That's a joke for days.
Less than half an acre.
Yeah, you got quite a task, young lady.
It's okay.
But I know you are. But the
It's
fact
all
of the
right.
matter is, in all due respect, you got to get these other folks involved. And I'm going to do whatever I can to get involved. I will go to your lecture aspect of it, and I'm going to hopefully share this with some of the folks that are running for office to get them to go over there, to go to that lecture.
They will all they'll all receive
You
a
need
personal invitation.
you need
at some
3
point
votes.
This
You need 3 votes. I would suggest I would suggest you would share this with everybody that's running for office right now.
Okay, so that's
Everybody.
happened. and we've met with Amanda Fritz's office. When we met with Chloe Udaly,
Amanda's gone.
Excuse me. When we met with Chloe Udaly, it ended up in the newspaper. Bruce, listen, this is a political issue, okay?
Yes, it is.
Lines have been drawn, monies are allocated, okay? It's a political issue.
Yep. And more permits are going to be handed out for that land
Yeah.
to be built on. Anyway, we got some. As you know, I got a couple of guys that.
Yeah,
are just
I got to
looking at
get
the deal.
downtown.
Okay, fine. Well, thank you very much.
No
but
problem.
we're gonna go continue this. It's not forgotten. You got.
No, it's not forgotten.
Yeah, okay, for sure now. All right. Okay, folks, we're gonna take a short break, and then we'll be at. And again, thanks very much, Bird.
No problem.
Appreciate it. Okay, good.
You are watching Oregon Voters Digest. This program can be seen again on these channels on these dates and times. Tell a friend. We're back. Here we go. Thanks, folks. We're back. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that first half of the show. We wish you'd stick around, because what we're going to do, we're going to probably do more on that, because that history is well known. History is pretty well documented. It takes time. So hopefully maybe you'll attend that meeting in March 31st. We'll make sure that we announce the address and everything else again, and talk about this, because that is history here. Again, like I said, this is Black History Month, but that history has been around for a number of years, and it shouldn't be forgotten. And hopefully someone that can define just where it is today, just bring it right up to date. But we'll do that. We'll do this here on the Oregon Voters Digest. So join us back. But anyway, here we are. Here we are today. Is that as you know, we're right in the midst of our election. We're picking new leadership for the city of Portland, and there's all sorts of issues here within our midst right now between the county and the city, and we're looking for good leadership. I mean, seriously, we need good leadership. We've got 5 seats that are available. We've got 4 that's going to be elected on, and we've got 1 that's sitting, but who just got there. In all due respect, we've got a whole new group of folks that are going to be sitting at the council, and we got some major issues. One of the major issues, naturally, is housing, and i.e. homelessness, and that needs to be resolved. That's huge. Mm-hmm. And then we've got county with the largest county in the state of Oregon, with the largest city in the state population wise, and then we got Metro, and I can still remember when Metro originated to begin with, kind of like part of the deal. We were all there, and I got the folks here today that will talk a little bit about that. But more than that is that we got one person who's been around for quite some time, who's going to be running for one of the positions on the city council, He's on Metro now. He's been in the housing before. He's been in that business before. We just kind of go back a ways.
Yes.
He knows the city, and we're going to need the kind of leadership that has that history. Very, very, very important, because it's not about just fun and games now. I mean, if we're going to have to get the kind of directions that we want the city roses back intact, we're going to get folks that have some sense of history about where we're going.
Yes.
And we're going to need that support, very much so.
Yeah.
And then I'm not taking anything away from the mayor. He's sitting in the seat, but he doesn't have the background. So the person who's running again, hopefully he's had some ideas or whatever. But in all due respect, that seat is up for grab, big time. And so at the end of the day, we're going to hopefully have the kind of leadership that the majority of the board will be the kind of leadership that will give it the kind of directions that we need to correct some of the problems that we're having right now. Okay. With that saying that, on my right and your left, I've got Sam Chase. Sam he's presently on Metro, and hopefully we're going to be just discussing a little bit about that bond that's out there right now, and this issue between the city and Metro. I trust Metro a little bit better than I do the city right now. But then as you know Fred. Fred's been around. He's been in real estate for quite some time.
25
Yes.
years.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. We've
Even
been
a little
around.
bit longer than you, and only a little bit, because it's probably been more than 20 with you. But
Yeah.
we've
Eric's gonna introduce me to
I know,
Sam.
I
I think
know.
way back in either
93,
93,
94.
94, something like that.
Yeah.
I've known Sam a long time.
So anyway, we've been around. So
Yeah.
we're going to have quite a discussion, folks. Let's put it that way. Sam is running for office, and we'll give Sam an opportunity to chat a bit. Then we'll kind of get in there, whatever. Sam, you get ready to run.
Yes.
Why don't you just give us a little background in terms of who Sam is again? A lot of folks already know your aspect of it, but your time in housing. I know you were in housing for quite some time.
Yes.
And then at Metro, what do you think about that right now?
Yes.
Because they've got a new leadership piece over there now.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, then your rationale for wanting to run for city council.
Yes.
Go
Yes.
on. You talk.
Well, I will share just, I guess, briefly,
Yeah, just brief, yeah,
a little
that's
bit of
all.
the history, as I've worked on affordable housing and homelessness and equity issues for many, many years, and done a lot of community organizing, and really got involved because I felt like people weren't responding to what was really needed out there, and seeing families that were struggling and not getting the support they needed to be successful on their own. And I know I've seen and worked in social service and nonprofit organizations where I see when you just give people the opportunity to succeed, you don't do it for them, you give them that opportunity, they succeed and they get out of homelessness, and affordable housing, jobs, access, and other services really help people get out of it. We have an incredible amount of work that we can do around housing and homelessness, and we're failing to do that right now at the city and the region. So that's a big priority for me that I hope we'll be able to talk about. We also have a job strategies that we really can meaningfully lift up. We have this economy that we think is fantastic. We have this quality of life in our region that we feel like is fantastic, and it is for a lot of people. But there are a lot of people, particularly communities of color and lower income communities, where they don't have access to that livability. They don't have access to those jobs. So that is a fundamental kind of component for me that I hope to talk a little more about. And so there's job strategies, there's homeless and housing strategies, there's strategies even around how we manage our transportation and get people around our city, how we practice environmental justice strategies, how we manage our parks and other things that are only available to some populations and some folks in our community. So it really ties into almost everything that the city is focused on and doing right now. So it's time for the city to really, I have some plans that I hope to share to move those things forward in really a meaningful way. We have, fundamentally, people are struggling on the streets. We have people dying on the streets of our city every year, just about every month, struggling. And these are folks that are not coming from all parts of the nation. I mean, there are some folks coming just like anybody, any population in Oregon. We have folks moving to our region, but the folks who are struggling on our streets are folks from our own community, from our own region, from
the Portland area. And they're our friends, they're our neighbors, they're our family members, they're our children, our parents, our brothers and sisters. That's who these folks are. And we're just not giving them the support to get off the street and make it on their own. And you know, I meet people, I talk to people, I've become friends with folks who have been in that situation, and when they get that opportunity to succeed, they do it. They grab onto that, hold on to that, and they get off the street and they get a better life. And will that happen for every single individual? No, but it will happen for an enormous number of the folks who are struggling, and there's so much more we can do on that. So, you know, those are some of the things I want to share my plans around.
In fact, I'm going to throw Fred. You know, Fred, when we were here last week, we were talking about, again, availability of real estate. And Fred really gave us he gave us a recap of basically what's going on right now, which I thought was great. And the first thing that came up in my mind after we had the show aspect of it were planners. I'm thinking about who was sitting at the table when they were pretty well saying, okay, fine, we got planners here, and they would have had to have known what you just shared when they were making those decisions, if you will, to have those loosely permits out there, parking issues, aspect of it, availabilities of anything, senior citizens, and as you say, the whole 9 yard, and that was some pretty heavy stuff. And Fred, what happened to those planners? You've been working around that arena for quite some time.
Our planners
Who
right
sits
now,
on that? Who sits on that?
it's not, I know who all the planners are. I don't want to get personal, but our planners right now with City Council, what they don't have is they don't have leadership coming from council. Okay, I'm not going to throw them all under the bus. They're all sucking right now. If you're on the planning commission right now, you suck. But I don't blame it all 100% on them. They're not getting what they're used to getting, what that body
That leadership,
is used to getting from city council.
Yeah,
That's
right.
one of the reasons why I'm glad Sam's running. I mean, I was just thinking about this when I saw the notification pop up on Facebook that you're running. And a lot of people don't know that, Gretchen Kafori, and I consider him one of the old Gretchen Kafori guys. When Gretchen Kafori was talking about jumping into housing in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of people, a lot of old fogey people, even some of the old Goldschmidt fogey people, thought the woman was smoking cocaine.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They were like,
Well, I don't know if I endorse that in
where's the money?
particular, but
No, but you know what I'm talking about? They were like,
Don't get so loose, guys.
they were going like, where's the money?
Yeah.
Where's the money, woman? Because there was no money to establish more low-income housing in Oregon. We're not talking about just Portland. Look at the state. And here you had this little woman going, we're going to jump into, and we're going to get into housing, right?
Yes.
And, she put together, she found people like Sam, Eric, Marshall. That's why I'm so disappointed in Marshall. Just gets on my nerves how much he screwed things up. He's probably going to jump off of a very tall bridge one day when him and Chloe are retired. But what I'm getting to is
The leadership. You're talking about leadership.
What I'm getting to is he's been around. He's
I know
seen how important vision and leadership is. You know what I'm talking about? Because a lot of the problems we've got in our city, it's not the people that are easiest to put your hands on and yell at. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's the people that we voted for. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They're not the people that we voted for. The biggest thing in the last, let's say, 15 years, where they have failed the people of Portland, is leadership. And see, I like that you saw what Gretchen did. She was one of our last of our badass leaders, I consider it. She said, "This is where we're going."
Yeah, and I to your comment about people would criticize her for maybe being too assertive around the housing issue.
Yep.
Is really maybe a more appropriate way to
No, they thought
to
you-
say
they
it.
thought
But
she was crazy.
here's what I learned from her on that was she stuck to her core value around that, even when people criticized her over and over again for doing that, and they would, and I learned that from her, and that was incredibly valuable for me when I went to Metro, because I ran for Metro on the issue that Metro wasn't doing housing at all. They weren't interested. They didn't feel like that was part of their growth management strategy. And I won't get too deep into that, other than to
But
say
you're one of the reasons why they're into it now.
that's what I brought with me to Metro was I would channel Gretchen to say, look, you know, every time there's a meeting, somebody's saying, "Oh, Sam's going to talk about housing again," right? And I'd do it anyway because that's where we needed to go, and so I loved that about
I
Gretchen.
remember in
Wait,
2008, I was going to say in 2008, when I was running for city council, one of the roughest days I had, I was in a room with a bunch of housing. I was talking to a bunch of housing people. And I've been in banking for the last 5 years. And I've been, you know, flashing, you know, Mr. Flashy for the previous 5 years. I hadn't seen just how robust the housing for Portland had grown. And I'm in this room with Sam Chase and it's like about 50 other people. And they're all like a lot of little Gretchen Kaforis. You know what I'm talking about? And I love that. I mean, I remember I told people I really don't know what to say because there's a bunch of people in this room I need to sit down and get caught up on. You know what I mean? Because it had advanced so much. The reason why I bring that up, a lot of that's retracted.
Okay.
You know, from the city, you know,
Yeah,
from the
okay,
city
yeah,
council
right.
level. That's why I'm
Right.
kind of like excited that Sam's getting back on there, because that's where the problem is.
I know.
You understand what I'm talking about? The problem is, you know, up until about 2008 or so, you know, when the big dogs were leaving the building. You know what I'm talking about? And Jim Francisconi was part of that too. Once he got on city council and stuff like that, and everything. But what I'm saying is, you know, we need to bring that spirit back.
I got your point, and we will talk a little bit more about that history.
Yeah.
But there are two things on the ballot there'll be people trying to push up. One, the city, and then Metro, right?
Metro's back.
Yeah. Why don't you let's talk about that piece?
Okay.
Because that's sitting out there on the table right now. People don't know
The
what to do.
issue that we want to refer to the ballot for May.
Yes, right. And you got Wheeler basically pushing it on the other end.
Yeah, so
what is that? Let's talk
there
about
are a tremendous number of folks who are really a part of this strategy,
Okay.
which is to say that a coalition of leaders from around the region have been working together for more than a year to come together to say, how can we truly and meaningfully address our homeless crisis and really step up our efforts to do that. It's really based on the notion that we have made some tremendous strides around housing. We got a regional housing initiative passed that the voters, with more than 60% of the voters throughout the region, a majority of voters in Clackamas County and in Washington County supported that. 23 jurisdictions all stepped up and supported that initiative for housing. So my point is, that's the first regional housing initiative in the country, in the nation's history.
Okay.
So now that we have not only that moving forward, we actually have a regional strategy. We have all of those folks working together now to say, how are we going to actually address our homeless crisis?
Okay.
So this is an opportunity where
Was the city involved in that process too? Were they at the table?
the city was involved, was participating in it. Wasn't
Okay.
part of their strat, but they stepped up. Nick Fish, who was, of course,
Right.
I was his chief of staff, and he participated and really meaningfully got on the phone, fundraised, helped promote and push that with other jurisdictions, and campaigned for it. It was one of his last really big efforts, and an incredible amount of energy he put in. Is quite commendable. So now we have this opportunity where these leaders see that we can do things regionally. They see that we don't have to just sit by while folks give from the, frankly, suburban communities, give folks a bus ticket and say, hey, go to Portland and get the services and housing you need, or at least give it a try. And then stand on the sidelines and criticize whether Portland's doing a good job or not managing the region's homeless crisis.
Okay.
Now we have this opportunity where the Portland business community, the 3 county chairs, and the Washington, Clackamas, Multnomah County are all standing together with the city of Portland as well, standing together saying, let's move this thing forward. And so Metro is really in a place where it needs to step up and step in and say, we're going to help convene these stakeholders and this process to be successful, and make sure that when we have these dollars, because it will be a significant investment as is needed to meet the crisis.
Wait. Fred,
I'll share that. I'll share that.
let him keep
It
going.
will be a significant investment, and this process, which we'll have, if this passes, 12 to 18 months to really begin the implementation component of it. We will have the opportunity to make sure these dollars are spent really effectively and efficiently, and that's where we need to be really work incredibly hard to make sure that we are
Well,
successful.
how does the city fit in that situation with
Well-
reference to what they're trying to do?
Well, I think one is the city is an entity to say they need to stop saying we can solve this all on our own, which they've done decade after decade, and they triple down and quadruple down with a new measure and a new this to try to solve it on their own. And it's more like the speed of trust is going to get us there a lot faster. And so they need to step up and partner with the region to do this work. And so that's where, I think then with these resources in place, how can the city of Portland really focus on, okay, we've got the housing resources, we've got some really an infusion of homeless service resources. Now let's really focus on where we can have the most impact with these dollars and have some accountability in the system and really focus on deliverables and outcomes and what are the programs that aren't working so well, and let's really actually identify those. And then what are working well? Where is it when we know 80% of the folks that go through this program are successful and stay in housing long term, when the services come with the housing, when we have shelter that has meaningful services with it, people are successful getting out of that. So really making tough decisions and investing in places that we
Sam, how
know
much
have the
money-
outcomes. So the money, I'll explain the initiative, the way it's shaping up at this point. It would generate $250 million a year for the region, which is a significant investment.
For how many years?
It would go for 10 years, and then it sunsets, and then the voters would determine whether, or the Metro would determine whether or not it would put it back out to the voters, and then it would be renewed by the voters.
Now
at
that's
that
based
point.
on a percentage of the property taxes, right?
No, it's not a property tax. It is a business. It's a high income earner tax.
So it could go up.
So,
It could be
well, it could. No, it would be
Just
for
based
folks
on earnings.
the amount over $125,000. So if you make $125,000, you pay zero.
Yeah, but I mean,
If you
it
make
could gain more than
126
$250 million over time.
Well,
it could grow.
yes, these are calculations
Correct.
based on projections.
Correct.
Yes, yes. But if you make $125,000, you pay zero. If you make $126,000, you pay $10. Was 1% on that amount over, and so and therefore $127,000, $20, and there on. If you're married, it's over $250,000. So that's kind of how that equation works, and then it was paired with a business income tax that would pay only on the profit of businesses making over $5 million annually.
And
So
yeah,
that's the business community, is really understanding and strongly supporting this because they understand that addressing our homelessness also means good economic development. It's good economic development when we are taking care of people on our streets, when we're taking care of people, everybody in our community, then the livability of our entire community also benefits, and that benefits our downtown core, that benefits our community as a whole.
But now taxpayers like senior citizens and as far as homes are concerned, just regular residents, is that going to impact them at all?
Well, if they're making over $125,000 individually or $250,000 as a couple filing jointly, then it would have an effect. If you are at that income level, I think you're able to meet your basic needs.
So it's all based on income. No.
One part, and then the other part is this business income tax. So if you're a business that's making over $5 million, then
Okay.
it's a percentage of that of your income only, not the total amount of business that you do.
Okay. And what about the city one?
That is there's not a city another city measure on the homelessness
Yeah.
that the city is still finishing its bond measure and it is on track actually to do its affordable housing bond measure, which is the capital dollars for.
I mean, I guess from the
housing.
layperson's standpoint, they're sort of worried about, is this going to impact me? Am I going to be? I own a home, if you will. I'm retired, and is this going to impact me at all?
It really
Either one of those measures.
Something gonna
very
impact
very. I mean,
high income earning people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just high income.
Retired
Very
people
high
won't-
income.
won't feel it, and the pass through for property for people who rent, it's going to be. It probably won't even be passed through to them.
Okay.
It's not even.
okay,
It's
okay.
not
No,
that much
it's
of an
not on
impact.
rental
Well, that-
properties.
that's
It's
the
not on
message.
It's not a
homes.
rental
Let's
property.
be clear.
Okay,
Let's be
good.
clear about that.
Yeah.
It's not on
Yeah,
homes. It's not on
correct.
rental. It's not on retirement incomes. It's you have to make more than 125,000
Okay.
or
Yeah.
250,000 as a couple to even be starting to make
Okay.
a payment.
So
You
this-
absolutely, yeah.
This will have no real impact
Okay.
on your average Jill and Jane out there.
Good.
That
good.
lives in a household that grosses less than 100 grand. Okay.
Okay.
They'll have like next to no. I mean, the carbon tax thing will have a much more detrimental effect on those people than this thing could ever do. You know, it's never going to affect them that way.
Well, I'm just, but as we started out the conversation from the standpoint of
No, it's a
folks who
well-
were here before,
it's a
and the
well-planned-
impact,
Yes.
the impact.
It's a
that-
well-planned bond.
Because people, a lot of people, the word gentrification keeps coming up, and
Gretchen will
losing
be
my
proud of you.
home,
Yeah, yeah.
and losing their homes and whatever.
Yeah.
That's been something
Yeah.
that wasn't clearly stated from the media
No,
standpoint.
this is a
I
well-crafted.
understand. This will not do that. This is not
Okay.
on property.
Okay.
It's
Correct.
not on
important.
rentals.
Glad you
It's
bring
not
that
on home ownership. It's not on retirement incomes or any of.
Correct.
I mean, even the probably if you look at the highest level of Social Security income, if you make more the top end of Social Security, it wouldn't affect that. So it's on very high income earners, frankly, quite a bit more than I've ever made in my entire life. So I would never have had to, or probably never will have to pay this tax.
Oh, if you
But-
become city commissioner, you will.
yeah, I would have to pay $100.
but then,
Actually, you're right.
Yeah.
But then thinking about that particular piece, those folks that are making that kind of income are moving within our area.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's having an impact, if you will, on rentals, and in some cases just buying new homes.
Yeah, but not that much. I mean, we're talking pennies here. This is not going to affect the average Jill and Jane who lives in a household that grosses
No,
less than 100 grand.
not that part I'm
Yeah.
talking about. I mean the folks that are moving in here that'll be making that income. They've got that income.
Yes.
You know, home prices are
Yeah, but
going
that-
up.
Yes.
That's what I'm just saying.
But it's still
Was that taken into
overall
consideration?
lower than the. Most of them are moving from markets where it's much more expensive to live here. I mean, to live where they're living than live here. So they're not going to notice the difference either.
There's a
I'm
benefit
just
to
saying.
the economy. I mean, the folks at the highest income levels, I mean, we're
Right.
talking about folks who are in
Yeah.
the top
Right.
2% or
Right.
3% here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
okay, got it.
so you know, the folks at that income level, I think it's fair that there is some support from folks at that income level to serve the folks who need the help the most.
Okay.
And there's a true economic benefit here. Let's not forget, this is truly beneficial for our economy. That's why the business community is so strongly behind this.
Okay, good. Look, we got about a half a minute. This is great. You're hopefully gonna come back again, really.
Anytime.
You
You
know,
know, I'm always
everything
here
closes.
every-
Everything closes about the 10th of March. We'll know exactly who's going to be running.
Yes.
and that's going to be very, very important. In fact, Fred might even run.
All right.
I'm keeping the mayorship thing.
He's thrown his
clean.
hat in there a
Yep,
few
yep.
times.
He made
Twice.
Yeah, he has, and I'm doing the mayor thing. So
Yes.
we're going to keep things going, and we'll.
Yes.
So the whole idea is that we're going to probably do. I call it an orientation process.
Mm-hmm.
We need to educate those folks who are running as to what the issues are, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing
The
right now.
dialogue is so important. It's
oh.
such a part of good, positive part of
Yes.
our democracy
Right,
that we live
exactly.
in.
Guys, thanks very much. It's been great as
Yeah.
usual. Thanks again, Fred, for last week.
No problem.
Appreciate it. And Sam, thank you.
Sam,
for
thank
that.
you so much.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, folks, you got it. See you next week. Have a good one.